Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Melina is beautiful, everyone. Now, guys, I want to talk a bit about that, that whole thing about people saying the wrong thing on camera and they lose their jobs for it or whatever. And you're like, first of all, that person probably doesn't know how that person is doing because they live in a mansion, first off, and they're not going to know what's going on in their lives because they have no idea, right? Like, and some people have dealt with hardships and they might be negative after they're famous. That's understandable. That does happen too. But you're like, this person lives in a mansion. How are they going to know how someone that's they're making fun of or criticizes feels, right? So you're just like, well, it's kind of ridiculous, And they say these comments, and you're like, like that's totally ignorant, and you can't say that, but they say it anyway, and you're like, okay, like that's the dumbest thing you can do because you're gonna lose your job, and if you're not famous enough, you're gonna lose your job. But like the girl from Mandalorian, for instance, she made a comment that was like really nasty, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know how famous she was, but I'm thinking like she had a secure job. I mean, for some people, you're like, well, like Roseanne Barr when she made that racist comment. I'm sure she's gonna apologize and go back in the spotlight. But if she doesn't apologize, or if she doesn't go back in the spotlight, she's got $80 million. So I mean, it's not like she's suffering or anything. She did have a video afterwards about how she's living a very terrible life now because of the incident, but it's like I saw her net worth. She's worth 80 million, so she's got to live somewhere else. The video depicted her house, but I don't think that's where she lives because she has $80 million. She can afford a big house unless she spent it all, but I doubt it. Um, so I mean, she's not really suffering or anything, which we don't really want them to suffer. But it's like she says something so nasty with black people. You're like, well, that's not nice. You can't say something like that and get away with it. But apparently, I'm sure she's gonna go back in the spotlight. Which I like Roseanne. I love the show Roseanne. I think it was a really good show, and she's really talented. She's a really good comedian. She's really good, but to say something like that is just awful. But anyway, click and subscribe. Totally enjoy by now.